If I may respond to that.
Please.
That is indeed in the Creed, that he descended into hell. What is interesting, again, is what we find there is he is freeing those souls that at last will be released into heaven. It's a comment you make in the book as well that I would quarrel with a bit, and that is that they've been boiling there. The fact is he goes to limbo, and not only do we meet in limbo those great figures from the Old Testament, but we also meet a number of great pagan philosophers and poets, and you give the impression that they're all boiling. What Dante sees when he gets there is that they're living in a rather pleasant place. Their suffering, as he describes it, is that they are giving up sighs from sorrow because they know they're missing something, but they're not quite sure what. They're living in an exalted castle, circled by towering walls, with a fair stream running around it, and they go to a meadow of green flowering plants. If that's boiling, it's okay by me, but it is not the fullness of heaven. So that, yes, he goes down, he frees them, but they have not been suffering, although you do make very clear, and I agree with it, much lower down. We do find Muhammad, who is suffering, and even the inferno in the Catholic vision is hierarchical.
Christopher Hitchens, you got about a minute to our break.
Well, to be exact, I mean, Prophet Muhammad is revoltingly described as being repeatedly disemboweled, full of excrement, and then sewn up and disemboweled again. Again, as with all these things, if you're going to take good bits of Dante, you have to take all of them as well, accept the responsibility. But I thought I was going to be the one to mention limbo. Am I not correct in saying that that's where St. Augustine said the souls of unbaptized children went?
And indeed, Dante includes those in.
Very recently, the Church has now told us, well, actually, you can relax about this, because it turns out there's no such place as limbo after all. Now, doesn't this again materialize my point? This is a man-made fable.
What is
all
very
of it
interesting?
Is a man-made fable, and it shows.
What is very interesting is that debate is currently going on in Catholic circles because, as you well know, there have been some recent pronouncements about limbo. They have not been definitive, but you may find it crazy that this is being debated right now. I find it actually very interesting.
Well, to both of you...
I find it both crazy and interesting.
When we come back for our short segment before hour number 2, I'll ask you both that wouldn't you expect God to have this many mysteries attached to him? I mean, you wouldn't want a simple God, the one who created the universe that the Hubble telescope observed. Certainly isn't going to make it easy to figure out, nor that would be very complicated infinity. I'll be right back. Christopher Hitchens is my guest. He's the author most recently of God is Not Great, columnist for Vanity Fair. And David Allen White, professor extraordinaire at the United States Naval Academy. When we return, we'll conclude hour 1 and bridge over to hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show. 55 minutes after the hour, America. Hugh Hewitt with David Allen White and Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens, you argue in God is Not Great that, this has to be man-made. It's so stupid and cruel, Christianity in particular, but religion generally. And I look at the same field and I say, this has to be divine because it's so infinite, complex, and grace-filled. I think whatever you argue, there's a reverse to it.
Well, when you say that, as you were just saying before the break, that God wouldn't make it easy for us, and there would be enormous complexities, possibly infinite ones, I think you say no more than the truth. That's why people are, in my opinion, obliged to be atheists, because we say that those who claim to know God's mind cannot possibly know what they claim to know. We can't prove that this entity or this force does not exist. We can only say there's no evidence that he does, and that the hypotheses for that existence have been exploded or abandoned. The other side can't say that. They can't say there are mysteries we're not even meant to understand. They say, no, our Pope has the keys of Peter. He's the vicar of Christ on earth. He can interpret God's will. He knows what God wants you to do about, for example, your sex life. Now, this is claiming more than any human being can possibly hope to claim to know. And thus, religion falls, in my view.
Professor White.
Well, I'm not sure it would be fair to say that the Church claims to know the mind of God. What the Church claims is that revelations came from God telling us the things we needed to know to eventually attain salvation. in the simplest terms of the Catechism, the first question of the old Baltimore Catechism, why are we here? To know, love, and serve God in this world and be with Him in the next. There is no claim that we have the entire picture. We can never, as humans, fully grasp the mind of God. It's a great blessing that we've been given a glimpse of it, as we have, and that He's spoken to us and told us what we need to know. But it's very interesting, in a sense, that the debate will rage on. I think eventually a revelation will come, even to those who don't believe. But a little line from William Blake: "He who doubts from what he sees will never believe. Do what you please." There is a kind of entrenchment in positions, I think more now than ever before, because science offers an alternative, and it may be more difficult to believe now than it's ever been in the past. And I think that may be a sign we're in, as the Chinese say, interesting times.
Last 30 seconds to you, Christopher Hitchens, of this hour. We'll be back for hour 2.
Can't do it in 30 seconds.
All right. Well, I'm not surprised. We'll be right back, America. Don't go anywhere. At the place of science and its tension with faith. In hour number 2, the conversation between Christopher Hitchens and David Allen White, the second of these conversations about God in the modern world. Don't go anywhere. The church, civilization, and science when we return to the Hugh Hewitt Show.